The St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority is advising the general public that effective Monday, the 6th of April 2020, waste collection services throughout the island will be provided on a limited basis. The adjustments to the service will be as follows. There will be no collection of bulky waste items until further notice. Regular waste collection will only be undertaken on the first scheduled collection day of each week. That is to say, people who normally receive their collection on Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays as the first collection day of the week will only receive collection on that day. Residents of Monlacqua Labrie, Pack Estate in Gayabois Saltibus will receive waste collection on Tuesdays. This schedule will remain in effect until the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority informs otherwise. As the coronavirus pandemic spreads across South America, Ecuador is coping with a rising death toll. We get more from Matt Rivers of CNN.
On the deserted streets of Guayaquil, a body left discarded on the sidewalk. This is the morbid new reality in the epicenter of Ecuador's coronavirus crisis. As the outbreak spreads, there is no more room for the dead. We've been waiting 5 days. We are tired of calling, says this man, pleading with authorities to pick up a corpse still laying inside. With a lack of testing for COVID-19, most have no way to know who among the dead are infected. Some feel forced to leave the bodies of their loved ones outdoors, fearing contagion as their corpses decay.
It's the odor from the body that we can't handle anymore. There are also elderly neighbors, and I have my mother who is 80 and having respiratory problems.
In one video obtained by CNN, a group of people in face masks appear to be removing a body from a car. Moments later, a police vehicle approaches and seems to speak with them as the corpse lies on the ground. After the interaction, the group puts the body back in the car and the police drive off. Authorities tell CNN they could not offer details about the video. National figures show Ecuador's police have collected more than 300 bodies from homes in Guayaquil from March 23rd to the 30th, and officials say they're struggling to keep up.
This unit, in the last 3 days, went from taking away 30 deceased per day to 150. That's independent from the work of the private funeral homes and graveyards in the country.
With morgues, funeral homes, and cemeteries strained, the government is bringing in containers to temporarily store dead bodies. One Guayaquil official says they also plan to build a large number of burial plots, as authorities expect over 3,000 may die in the Guayas province alone. Meanwhile, healthcare workers say hospitals are also beyond capacity, as reports surface of patients dying while waiting for care. In a video posted online, the mayor of Guayaquil pleaded for help and demanded the federal government give answers.
Queridos compatriotas.
Ecuador's president has since mandated transparency about the scale of coronavirus inside the country. Officials have also announced new measures to slow its spread and promised to prioritize, quote, dignified burials of the dead. But it may be too little too late for many in Guayaquil who are left with no way to lay their loved ones to rest. Matt Rivers, CNN.
The total number of coronavirus deaths in Spain has now exceeded 10,000. The country, the second worst hit in terms of deaths, has also lost nearly 900,000 jobs. The U.S. on Thursday said it saw a record 6.6 million new unemployment benefit claims. The unemployment figures are another sign of the dire impact the pandemic is having on businesses in many countries. Worldwide, confirmed coronavirus infections are nearing 1 million. A university's tracker has recorded more than 50,200 deaths globally, while more than 204,000 people have recovered. Here's a roundup of COVID-19 from the BBC.
Spain has overtaken Italy in its total number of confirmed coronavirus cases, meaning it is now fighting the second biggest outbreak in the world. The latest figures show Spain now has nearly 118,000 infections. The death toll in Spain is still behind Italy, though. 932 people have died in Spain in the past 24 hours. That is slightly fewer than yesterday. It brings the total number of deaths there to almost 11,000 lives. Italy's death toll has reached almost 14,000, while in France more than 5,000 people have died. The United States has the world's highest number of cases, with nearly 250,000 confirmed infections. Just under half of the country's deaths have been in New York. All this comes as the number of people around the world infected with COVID-19 passes 1 million. That's according to a tally being recorded by Johns Hopkins University in the US. And let's just show you what those figures look like. This graph shows infections from the start of March. China way ahead, but there you can see Italy. Watch it closely, leaping to second place by the middle of March. Spain overtakes Iran to go third, but it's the rate of infections in the US, which sees a dramatic increase by the end of the month. We will take you to Washington to hear from our correspondent shortly. First, though, more on the situation in Europe. Spain's health ministry saying the rates at which new people are being infected is continuing to stabilise.
El incremento en el número de casos.
The increase in the number of cases today is 7% compared to yesterday, which confirms this trend that we've been seeing these days of a reduction of the rate of increase. And the same conclusion is derived when we study hospitalised cases and cases admitted to intensive care units.
Let's take you to our Europe correspondent Gavin Lee, who joins us now from Brussels. So it's a bit of a mixed picture in Spain there, Gavin, with the rate of reduction in infections decreasing, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it's an alarming figure, isn't it? It's the second highest figure released for any country in a single day. The death toll, 932 people in the last 24 hours confirmed as being a fatality of coronavirus. And optimism, we just heard from Maria Jose Sierra, who is the country's emergency health director, who's the stand-in director because the previous emergency health director has coronavirus and they're still recovering in isolation. That there is a 7% drop, 7% increased rate of spread. So 7,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Go back a week or so, there was a 19% spread. So significant over the past week. But just to put into context, you said a second ago, Spain overtaking Italy for the first time. 117,000 total cases in Spain, 115,000 in Italy. We are going to get those figures for Italy later tonight. It's always around 5 o'clock in the evening. So that means that we expect Italy will go back above Spain. But in terms of the comparison here, I think if you compare the last 7 days, Spain has had 67,000 new cases in a week. Italy has had around 30,000 in that time, so Spain has doubled the rate. And just as well, we've heard from the Ministry of Health, we also heard from the Guardia Civil, the civil guard in Spain, to say that they've given out more than 5,200 fines in the past few days for people still not sticking to the strict confinement measures. Things like walking fake pets, they've said, trying to justify reasons for being out and about, pets that didn't exist, going to friends' houses for something to eat, and refusing to comply with the police as well.
Gavin, while we talk about the data and look at graphs, it's always interesting every day to compare them. But the human suffering at the moment across Europe is just incredible. And we have to think as well about those healthcare workers in Spain and in Italy. How are they coping, particularly in Spain, with these kind of numbers?
Well, if you look at the numbers of deaths, first of all, and the biggest figure of fatalities in Spain for the death toll, 10,935 people killed. Of that death toll, more than half are in the Madrid greater region. That's a big worry for the authorities there. We're seeing a similar picture actually in Paris and in and around Madrid, the Lombardy region in Italy, those big cities where plans are in place to start taking people to the rural areas, the communities that can cope a little better. But of course, there's a knock-on ripple effect of that, the risk of spread. Just to quickly mention the French scenario, for example, it's Easter weekend. It's the Easter holiday that starts this weekend. The police are all over roads, bridges, motorways out of Paris, Lyon, Lille, the main cities, because they want people to stay home. They have given out more than 360,000 fines in the past 2 weeks. There is one country that's gone a step further, the Dutch. The Netherlands government have put, the authorities there, 4 people in prison for what's called corona coughing, basically deliberately coughing and spitting at the authorities or people in the street, claiming they've got coronavirus. Prison sentences for 4 people.
Gavin, thanks for joining us with that, all the news there from across Europe. Well, Gavin mentioned the picture in France and mentioned that those police in France are stepping up their spot checks, particularly around Paris. So many people like to leave Paris for the traditional Easter holidays that start today. But Paris has been badly hit by coronavirus, and what the police are trying to do is stop the spread to other parts of the country. Here's Hugh Schofield in France.
if you're a French family and you're hoping to take off for the Easter break, maybe to visit grandparents down here in the provinces, then the message from the French government is quite clear: think again. There's no school, of course, at the moment, but technically today is the start in the Paris region of the Easter holidays, and normally the motorways would right now be crammed with vehicles heading for the countryside or the seaside, packed trains too. But the chief of police in Paris has deployed 8,000 officers to check on people leaving the city, and he's promised a policy of zero tolerance. We'll be there at the start of your journey, he said, we'll be there during your journey, and we'll be there at your destination. It's a tough message, prompted by the knowledge that after nearly 3 weeks, the policy of confinement is having psychological effects on people, particularly on Parisians living in their small Paris apartments. And the bad news is it's not going to end anytime soon. Officially, the confinement, the lockdown, ends on April the 15th, but with infection rates showing no signs of slowing down, everybody knows that the period could be longer, maybe much longer.
Hugh Schofield there in France.
The US's top medical expert on the coronavirus pandemic and a member of President Donald Trump's coronavirus task force is facing threats to his personal safety and now requires personal security from law enforcement at all times, including at his home. CNN's Evan Perez reports.
Well, this is just disturbing to hear. Dr. Anthony Fauci, a key member, you might even say the leader of the White House coronavirus task force on many days, he is now facing death threats.
We couldn't believe it when we learned about this. He's been forced to beef up his security detail following growing concerns for his safety. Our senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez, broke the story and joins us now. How can this be?
Well, you know, that's one of the things that happens with the increased profile that Dr. Fauci has now taken. As you mentioned, you know, he is essentially the face of the government's response to this pandemic. And it appears that as a result of that, he's gotten an increased number of threats. And so the Health and Human Services Department essentially decided that he needed to have more personal protection. They reached out, the Inspector General for HHS reached out to the Marshal Service, which essentially deputized some officers from the Inspector General at HHS who are now acting as Dr. Fauci's personal security. We also know that the Metropolitan Police here in Washington has also increased the amount of protection around Dr. Fauci's home. But again, guys, it is one of those sad testaments to the increased profile that Dr. Fauci has taken during this crisis, that he's getting these threats now.
Gosh. Oh, I can't believe it. Evan, thank you for that reporting. Of course, we're wishing him all the best. He's doing so much for this country right now. Also, more than 30,000 Americans are back at home after being stranded overseas because of travel restrictions, of course, prompted by the response, Jim, to this outbreak.
But they're not all home. Thousands more still need help getting back to the United States. CNN national security correspondent Kylie Atwood joins us now from the State Department. How many still out there, and how are they going to get back?
Yeah, well, Jim, the State Department told us yesterday that they are still tracking about 24,000 Americans who may be seeking assistance from the U.S. government to get back to the United States. And to give you a little bit of context here, these are largely American travelers who were in countries that then closed down their borders, closed down their international airspaces, preventing them from getting home. And the State Department has already helped 30,000 of these Americans get home. But the message from the senior State Department official who is leading this repatriation effort yesterday was pretty blunt. He told Americans, listen, when an earthquake happens, you don't stand on lower ground and wait for the tsunami to come. You seek higher ground. And he said in this instance, the earthquake has already happened. So these Americans who are abroad really need to be seeking assistance to get home now. And he said that that assistance that's being provided at this time by the U.S. government may not be available in a few weeks' time. So it was a very clear call to these Americans to seek assistance now, because they really should be getting back to the United States with their families to help the U.S. fight this coronavirus and keep it contained.
Kylie Atwood, thank you so much. I'm thinking about all those folks still waiting to get back here.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. When we return, sports and the weather.